for today. My intention for today is to go through the agenda that we have for today. It's very simple agenda. My distractions is that I'm currently arriving to my house. So I should be there like in 10 minutes. So in the meantime, you will probably hear some background noise. But that's my only distraction at the moment. And how do I like to be acknowledged? Um, I like to be acknowledged usually on the spot. Like I don't I like to be acknowledged verbally. I don't like prices. I don't like this kind of stuff. I just like to know in the moment that if I did something good or wrong. And I will pass it on to Gideon.
Hey there, sorry. Hey, Edu, I can't find the document with the agenda for some reason. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong place.
Yeah, in the Communitas text channel, there is a description in the top menu of the text channel. There's a description of our working group, and at the end of the description, there is a link to the agenda.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Distractions, not a lot of distractions right now. Intention, just would like to figure out, like this week, this is a big week for us, so I'd like to figure out if there are ways that we may be able to lend a hand with the launch of the upgrade. And then how I like to be acknowledged. I don't know. I haven't really thought about that in depth, but what I would say is, to me, what's much more meaningful is just like somebody who really notices something that I'm doing that is special. I don't really need like public accolades as much. Like I like a just like one thoughtful comment from somebody who I respect. That means a lot to me. So I will pass it on to Vi. You there? I'll pass it on to Vi.
I'm mostly here to look at the agenda, get through it, and advise where I can discuss things. And I'll pass it to, I don't know who has gone, maybe Ben's.
Hi. Yeah, my intention is just to get more familiar with Communitas, and as the params have been decided on, kind of find other ways to contribute. No real distractions on my end. How do I like to be acknowledged? I like kind of like the direct feedback. I actually am more comfortable in like private, less like public. But I'm kind of coming around to like the whole praise thing as well. So I will pass to Zepti.
Thanks, man. Yeah, my intention for the call is actually my first call on Communitas. So yeah, seeing with you guys. How I like to be acknowledged. I really like when I see like the expression of the on the faces of the people when they are acknowledging you. Yeah, that feels awesome. And I do not have any distraction. I'll pass it to Nate.
Thank you, Zepti. My intention is just to catch up with everyone, see what I can do to contribute to Communitas working group. Distractions, just working on a lot of things right now, but manageable. So I think the question, if I'm correct, is how do I like to be acknowledged?
That is correct.
How do I like to be acknowledged? I have no idea, to be honest with you. I guess I like to be acknowledged. I guess I don't really care for being acknowledged or not, but I mean, everybody loves it, but I don't have a preferred way. Like, any acknowledgement is nice. So I'll go with that. I'll pass it back to you.
No worries. And I pass it on to Organic Movement.
Hey there, y'all. I think to answer the question, by the way, my name is Morgan. I use they, them pronouns for those of you who might be kind of new to me and me be new to you. I like being acknowledged for my intentionality and care. And I don't know if y'all talk love languages, but I definitely identify as being somebody who orients through acts of service. So when I'm acknowledged for my intentionality around the ways I'm trying to be of service and provide ease and connectivity amongst people, that feels good. Yeah, and my intention is to continue to get to know you all, to know how I can be involved on the team. And distractions, there are quite a few people kind of moving in and out of an encampment that's right outside my office. And so there's some movement that's kind of taken my attention. But happy to be here with you all.
Thank you, Morgan, for that. And yeah, acknowledgement, it's a peculiar thing. I asked the question because I feel that we are in a context where praise will be our acknowledgement tool in a way. But you know, we are humans, and sometimes it's interesting to see what other options can be explored to acknowledge people who contribute, for example, to this working group or to any other space. So that's the reasoning of that question. I will change a little bit the order of the agenda. Septi, can you share your screen to share the document? Just to put context, Gideon, you guys and Nate, I think, asked about the data of Discord, and Septimus prepared a document. So, Septimus, if you'd like to share.
Yeah, let me share my browser. Actually, yeah, praise Acid Laser for the designs. Yeah, he's a hero. Actually, in this document, we have like the data from August and September, and then we decided to make like November and December, so we start like in January, February, like the normal dates. And I mean, I like to watch it, comparing to the old ones. Maybe, I mean, for example, like in November, we have like, between November and December, we have like almost 400 new people. And if you compare it with in August and September, it was like 271, which is an increase. And we also had the holidays break. I think it's very great, especially November was a very great month, like 301 new invites. And like if you check these numbers, they look like they're decreasing, but it's just because November was such a great month. And then yeah, the actually like we have like 120 new members that they stay in the server. There was one number. Oh yeah, this one. Like this is the total number of people we have right now in Discord is 1,293. I mean, yeah, this is people who, yeah, this is a graph who shows like people who's leaving, and then after people who was, oh, this is not accurate. Yeah, this was not changed. I mean, I could just pull the data very quick. Sorry for that. Just give me a second. Monthly. Where are the levers? Here. Oh, here. So yeah, in November it was 43, so 19 who were in DC for more than a month, and 24 who oh, that's muted. Sorry. They just had the same color. Oh, that's actually it's a nice chart. Did they change it? Oh, it seems they changed it. Like they're not showing this graph anymore. Oh, sorry, it's here. Yeah, it's actually 56, and it's 38 that were older than a month, and 18 that are, people who just join and then leave the server. And in December it was 47, and if we compare it actually with August and September, there's probably more people leaving, but there's also more people joining, because right now, like, we're having like a lot of newcomers, which makes sense that more people is leaving. That means there's more traffic in the community. Sorry, I didn't prepare like this talk. I just prepared the document. Then the interaction with of the members. 407. I really like to compare with the past. Otherwise, I think it doesn't. Numbers, if you don't compare them.
Just to provide a little bit of context.
Mhm.
For example, we have you said 1,200 people on December or November. I don't recall. Nowadays we have 1,600. So we had an increase from that time to now of around 400 people coming into the server. So I mean that's quite a lot.
24 days, because this data is from 31 of December.
Exactly. So we had quite an increase in that. I had a question basically for Nate or Gideon. Did you manage to access the web page that has this data, or it was not accessible to you?
I have not accessed it yet, but I haven't tried either. So I think I have the permissions to access it, because it's not something you access directly through Discord, correct? It's the external website API or whatever.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm trying to remember, but I don't think I was able to get to it. I just clicked on it right after the meeting, so I'm sorry, I just don't remember. Let me check and see.
Yeah, because basically Nate and Gideon were talking about this in the last meeting, and we were discussing about what we can do with this data, because you just did this and we did the other one back in September. There was no concrete action towards what to do with this data. So this is the reason why I bring this to the topic. Yes, Nate, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's really good that you put these together, because like I would like to go through them and see which metrics really like that matter to decision making in terms of like onboarding. How much type of interaction we have, and like what made those people interact and what they didn't. And so what I would really like to see is kind of have a survey that it accompanies this type of data that we can use to engage with newcomers and see why they keep engaged and why they do not. But I don't think they have individual names, do they?
No, they don't. No,
It's just in the aggregate.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can only not even see the country. Like Chu was interested in see the country, and since you can see the people who's from the States, but not for the rest, because there is not enough sample. So in order to protect data, Discord is just until you reach a certain amount of number. Let's say 100 people from Spain. Then when you have 100 people from Spain, they say, okay, Spain have like 20% or whatever. But right now it's like states and then others, because the others are very small.
Is that some input that a bot can fetch, or is that just for Discord eyes only?
Vi, do you know of any kind of bot that does this kind of data outputs, or is this just Discord who can do this?
Which specific data? Sorry, I was in the call for a while.
I would say individual user data.
Like their location.
More like their engagement.
Oh yeah, we can track that. I don't know if there's any pre-existing bot that does it. but we can probably do it over the API. Like that's doable. Like we can log whenever someone sends a message and whenever someone joins or leaves a voice channel, and whenever someone's joining our server or leaving our server, we can track those things. But we can't track data like where they're from, and personally, any PI isn't available to us.
Okay. Mainly because we have I'm trying to think in a way that we can do a concrete action towards this information. And I'm specifically thinking on you, Gideon and Nate. And I don't know, I really don't have no clue how to process this information. Besides, for example, there is a category. I don't know if you have a Deceptimus, but there's a category that explains which is the channels that get used the most and which is the channel that get used the less. And for example, if we see a working group that has way low activity, probably it's a transparency issue that they need to improve because they need to communicate more, this kind of stuff. So, but besides these little actions, I get short on ideas of how to process this.
Hey, so I'm looking at. I found that link again, and this is what happened to me last week. Yeah, I can't. I mean, I can get to the page, but there's no data that's actually showing up. So there may be access rights thing going on. I'm not sure. There is one little note that says to protect user privacy, unless a given group has more than 50 members, it will not be shown as distinct result. It may be grouped as other, but that's not relevant. So I'm not sure what's happening here. But I repasted the link in the Communitas channel, and maybe Nate, maybe you can click on that and see if you can get through.
Yeah, look.
Was there anything, Septimus, that you think it's worth noticing out of the data that when you were building it?
I mean, I just saw what's obvious. Like, there's more engagement. Like during the times happening, like, especially in November, there was a lot of engagement. And for me, like with this data, what should be the goal? I mean, first you need some goals, and then you pull out the data. Like if you want to track, traffic, and build strategies around how to increase that traffic, and you then you analyze if that strategies you made were correct or not, or but in my opinion, you first build the strategies, then you pull the data.
Yeah, so I have the same thing. So it's limited to administrators only of the Discord, which we have eight administrators.
Oh, you are on the peasant group of people. Okay.
Yes, I'm the peasant. No, it's fine. I think the access rights thing is okay. I just think that we need to figure out what metrics matter here, and that we find out what it means, and then have periodically a review for each of those metrics for the meeting, and that's something that'd be interesting to look at. And I can look at what Zepti, as long as you've pulled all the relevant data that is offered through that web page, then on these slides, I can look at it and maybe get in as well. We can try to figure out what information is relevant, what information we could also grab if we had a bot. Maybe Vive AV could inform that a little bit, but just to see what is relevant for onboarding processes, because I do think this information would have a real big impact on our decision making in terms of like how we approach onboarding individuals. So
yeah. So just to provide a little bit of context, we did the first data of Discord before the implementation of the new onboarding process. So the metric that will be key for us as a sense making is the retention one, the levers ones. Like if we manage to retain more people, and that is a specific one that they have. Like for example, how many members visited and communicated, versus like how many muted your server, use most. But there is one specifically, I think it's in audience, where they specifically tell you how people interact, or here server levers over time, and how many members successfully activate on the first day. This one specifically, for example, relies on our onboarding process. How many new members retain the next week, for example. That's another one that if our onboarding process is good, we will have a week retention that is good, for example. And in our case, for example, we have a 36% of retention after the first week. And that for me is the key thing to know, because that for me is the only indicator of a good onboarding process in my mind. I don't know what you think, Nate, about that.
Yeah, I think that the information is good to have, but it's useless if we don't have an action associated with it. If we see that a member has, or this group of members have joined and they participated once and they stopped participating the next week and they continue not participating, and like we need to engage with those individuals and say, hey, why, what was this? So the information that we do gather needs to have some type of action associated by our group to like reinforce that data and make sure that we're making improvements.
Right.
Hey, so Nate, I'd be really interested in diving into that with you. So I think I think it's super useful. And Zepti, if you can, is there a report that that looks like a set of slides? Can you share that on the Communitas?
Yeah.
Like as a message?
Yeah, sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. And if you can add it to the agenda, also it could be nice. We can keep it on the agenda and keep track. I want to welcome, just in the meantime you do that, Septi, I want to welcome Danilo and Genesi to the call. Welcome, Danilo. How are you doing?
Thank you. Very good. Good to be here, guys.
Any intentional distraction you would like to share with us?
No, I'm really just lurking. I like what's happening here, and I'm often trying to figure out how to collaborate, also related to the new initiative that I'm working on. But I don't have any super clear ideas at the moment.
Perfect. If you need anything, let us know.
Cheers.
Welcome, Genesi. How you doing?
Hey, welcome for me. Thanks. I'm good. I don't have really an intention today, more than the current one that is just checking out what are you doing and how I can help you if I can. And so that's it.
Perfect. Nate, the other thing that I think, going back to the topic, we are going through for Daniel and Janae.
Man down.
Hey Gideon, can you check that link again? I think you should be able to open it now.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Yeah, sorry about that. So I was saying that the other information that I feel it's quite interesting, it's the one that it's about our referrals. There is I think it's one of the very few private information in a way that we can see, and it's like most popular referrers. For example, we have an unknown referrer of 97 people who joined from that link. We have, for example, for some reason, Bookface Y Combinator. So there are crypto voxels that come. So sometimes I think it could be interesting to take a look at these things. Maybe as a marketing, maybe as a reputation track. I don't know, however it could be. But I think that's also another metric that could be interesting to think on an action to work towards.
Yeah, and things are getting like a little bit, because now that we're getting all these platforms and everything's becoming integrated, a lot of the work that is happening in like the Team DAO and the work that's happening in like Communitas and transparency, we're all kind of melding into the same types of work. And so like these statistics would probably be really good for like comms and understanding where people are linking in from. But it's like, how do we make sure that this type of information is being transmitted to that group is the hard part. I just wanted to point that out, just because like there are so many working groups that are having to share infrastructure and share data like that, and so I'm not sure if anybody has any ideas on the best way to kind of distribute that and try to figure out, maybe it's something Gideon you could help me with as well.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. And Vi, that did it. Thank you. the data is now showing up. And Nate, yeah, we can follow up and maybe come up with some ideas and then come back to the group.
Sounds
I don't
good.
know if there's anybody else who's interested in this too.
Yeah. Anybody else interested to be really grateful for your help.
I'm interested in that. I think it's kind of figuring out like which metrics and like how they inform actions. I'd be interested in helping with that.
Yeah, me too. I'd also like to be involved. I think it will also feed into the way I manage Hotspot. So let me know.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Everybody, Benz and Mount Manu. And if anybody else is interested, I'll put you on. I'm writing your name down right now, and so perhaps we can get like a little subgroup meeting on the data for Discord.
Yeah, I can suggest you to open a thread on the Communitas text channel. So if you're working on that and commenting on that, it will be easier to track. If that makes any sense.
That sounds good.
Perfect. And then I will pass it on to you, Nate, actually, for the participation tracks. Would you like to explain a little bit about that initiative that you were thinking of?
Yeah, so this is something that I've been thinking about for a while now, and it's something that a lot of people don't work well with ambiguity. When they show up to our community, they say, I want to participate, but I'm not really sure how or what I'm really interested in. There may be a couple things that I'm interested in. I like, and so the idea of having a participation tracks is just saying, hey, let's give you one path to participate and give you some immediate contribution avenue, basically, and say, this is what you're going to do. This is how you're going. So, for example, if you wanted to go onto the Twitter team and help out with Twitter team, you can take the Twitter track and say, these are the steps that you needed to take before you can start participating on the Twitter team. And that means, introducing you to D-work, introducing you to how things work in the thing, work in the comms group, introduce you to what tools we use to post tweets, and so on and so forth. And so you have this like kind of roadmap for that type of participation track. And once you've been educated in that and you start to participate and contribute, then you can continue doing that, or you can start to look at different participation tracks. And so this idea kind of provides structure to those who don't work well with ambiguity, and I think it will help keep people engaged better in the long term. And so we just have, the idea would be to develop a bunch of different participation tracks for all the different working groups, and have newcomers, when we onboard them, say, hey, if you're not sure exactly what you want to do, or maybe you want to dip your toes in for a little bit, but if at any point in time you can say, I want to take on this participation track, and our guides can actually, say, okay, I'm a guide in the TEC, and I'm going to guide you through this participation track and make sure that you get everything you need, all the information that you need, all the answers that you need in order to participate in constructively. And so that's the idea behind it. However, there's a lot of things that haven't been thought about, so if you have thoughts on this, I would like to hear from people. And if you disagree with how that's done, I'm okay to hear that as well. So, yeah.
Can I ask you, Nate, if you can point out what would you think would be the ideal steps to get a participation tracks going?
The idea is just to have a roadmap. So like identify like what in particular, like, when the working groups are being developed, we're going to have bounties. That is going to be a key piece for most of the working groups. We're going to have set roles for a little bit, but I think bounties will slowly start to take over most of the working groups. And so having that type of bounty process, so when we get a new member in, we just say, okay, there's certain types of tasks that can be done. And having participation tracks that guide them to those tasks and get them engaged and show them how it's done will allow them to participate in other realms if they so choose. But I think, by having the way we have it set up now, we just have a lot of people who are like, yeah, I'm interested in going to the Communitas working group and listening in and maybe contributing their thoughts here and there, but like without something concrete and without understanding the process, we can have these guides kind of like gently get them accustomed to the practices here in the TEC.
Okay.
So it would be like first steps would be like roadmaps for each working group to say, hey, this is the type of like a beginner's contribution that can be given out.
I don't know if you can see the screen, Nate.
Okay.
It's in the agenda, and here down below in the latest meeting a few weeks ago, this is the roadmap that MS sort of prepared, and I think Gideon, you will be interested in this. The roadmap that we prepared with Nate and Tam that basically identifies the different roles or personas that could exist, but it's based on areas of interest. So if you are interested in education, you are a learner or an educator. If you are interested on participating in the EC, you are someone that you know what are you there for. You are someone who doesn't know how much time you have, or you're just looking for something to do. Or you could be a partnership, or you could be someone interested in conviction voting funding, or you're interested in consulting. So we created this kind of first approach, and MS is actively working on this document, on this distribution of, and the idea is to understand the areas of interest as a starting point to identify where someone could go, where could be directed to. I don't know if it works for you, but I think it's a nice starting point for this process of the participation tracks, because we can identify not only by working group but by areas of interest how we can provide support to someone. And I was thinking that when you were explaining a little bit of how this could happen, besides having a roadmap, we can test it out with the people who join the orientation call, and we can sort of clarify what are their intentions and add that to a spreadsheet, for example, identify the interests of the areas of interest of these people who joined the orientation call as a test, and then send the guides to sort of take them through this, for example, roadmap of possibilities. Do you think that makes sense?
I do. I think I think it serves a really good mind map for the individuals who come into the TEC. However, like for myself, I follow a lot of those paths. And so, like, for me, I always say I can't work within ambiguity. Like, I could do, I'm okay with being a learner, educator, and a partnership person. Like, cool, but which way do I go? And so, instead of like wavering at the beginning there, I think it would just be nice to have a guide who says, hey, just pick one. Just pick one and we'll go through it. And then if you have any questions, we'll guide you to the next steps. And so, yeah, I think it works really well with that map. But yeah, I just think, having structure for some people is very good.
So just to jump in, because I was working a little bit with MS on this, and I think these things are actually complementary, very complementary. It's like the kind of the interest assessment is like what the Communitas team maybe is doing to kind of like find the right paths for people. But Nate, what you're talking about, I think is really, really important for us. This is some of the stuff I used to do in my old job. Like we used to call it engagement ladders, but participation tracks is like another nice way of thinking about it. And I just think that there's like this sneaking suspicion that I have, which is that there are people who are just not finding their way right now, and it's because of like it's kind of related to what you're talking about, Nate, which is like I just think for some people they really need like a clear path of like oh here's how I would do it. And even just like the way that we used to describe this in my old job is like at the beginning of any kind of new job, you want to be much more articulative about exactly what somebody needs to do. It needs to be much better defined, and then over time they can get into more ambiguity. But like in that initial step, when somebody's just learning about like the comms group, the team or the legal or whatever it is, having some very simple things that they can do early on and get some quick wins is really important. So and I think there's like a natural connection here to the relationship management database, to HubSpot, which is, I'm sure, part of the reason you're thinking about this, Nate. So this is another area that, and I think it's related to the data stuff that we're talking about. So, maybe we piggyback those two conversations together.
Yeah, and honestly, like Daniello and Benz, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this. Maybe your own experience with how you've becoming slowly participating in the TEC. I don't know if you'd be willing to share that.
Yeah, I mean, I could share two things quickly. One is kind of like selecting the type of contributor you wanted according to the stage, like an relatively early stage organization should kind of pre-select people for high ambiguity. So in that sense, that map, I think for the stage of the TEC kind of works. You're halfway starting to become more set up, bigger, in that you want to almost nudge a little bit more in the opposite direction. But I would still, from what I have seen, my very limited perspective, I still think that you're still in a fairly high ambiguity stage where people who tolerate more higher ambiguity are more likely to stay regardless. So I would perhaps prioritize that as an idea. Then my own experience has been it's never been very clear actually what the TEC stands for. I mean, I get the idea of improving token engineering, but then the output that I have actually seen has been tools that I really like, and I'm in this conversation actually because I have a bunch of ideas for tools, and also ideas on how to improve at least one of the tools that you currently have, and I don't really know how to do that. And I done a couple of times, like a couple of moderate attempts. Like I didn't invest a lot of energy into it, being honest, but I tried a couple of times to kind of like get a little bit more involved and figure out with whom can I speak about new ideas, or when do you discuss, let's say, mechanisms and stuff like that, which is really my skill set is system design, mechanism design, governance stuff. And yeah, I never really found out. So then when I have a little bit of time, I kind of come in and lurk to find it, let's say, more organically. But in that sense, I guess there is something about joining working groups, but there is another thing about like being able to influence. Like a lot of DAOs have trouble with more senior people joining. They're like the tendencies for more senior people, or at least those who can be more entrepreneurial and so on, to start their own DAO, because there is no real pathway for people who might have like a lot of expertise on a concrete thing, or who might be more like strategy oriented, or who could very much start a new product, and they might want to do that as part of a DAO. And I have yet to see any DAO really creating a sort of specialized pathway for what could be like very valuable, very high value contributors, other than for developers for whom some sort of like custom pathways exist. And I don't want to introduce the idea that some people are better than others and so on, but leadership is still very much a thing here, and I don't think there is anything optimized for that. So unless it's the people who were kind of very much at the genesis of the DAO and started it, the tendency would be for people to go somewhere else and start their own thing. At least in what I've seen.
Yeah, and so to respond to that, do you think is that more around like the functions that were the outputs that we're creating here at the TEC, aka our working groups, how we differentiate ourselves? They don't match the things that you would like to contribute to the TEC. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the level of abstraction. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with cognitive functions, or at least the most basic version of that is the Myers-Briggs, and there is a distinction between S and N, sort of like there are some people that are very factual oriented, as like what's the thing, and then you turn me like an educator. Okay, it's very concrete, it's clear, like I see in that map. But there is the more pattern, intuition, somewhat strategy oriented thing. So if I'm like, I would love to contribute to strategy conversations, there is nowhere for me to find that other than actually joining a team that already has a strategic direction. And that's just an example, but equally, like if I want to influence at the level of culture, or perhaps thinking about like how the TEC or one of the TEC groups positions themselves. And so that means that the default pathway is to join any of these groups as a very junior contributor. Like you end up and do very basic work, which is okay in many cases, and kind of selects for humility and so on. And that's kind of good that are people who are just interested enough in the mission to contribute. But you're also losing a lot of other people who might not want to write a blog post, or who might not have the time to attend a lot of calls without knowing how to contribute that, let's say, more strategic or perhaps shaping sort of like higher order complexity work in general, or longer term horizon work that is less operational oriented. And I have yet to see any DAO kind of create a pathway for that. While in the corporate world exists, like you can get people who recruit as an executive and they join as an executive, and there is a special process for that. Now we're trying to move away from that model, but I hope that sort of parallel clarifies a little bit what I'm hinting at.
Definitely does. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think I like the idea of these tracks and onboarding people so that they are oriented to all the tools and platforms people are using. I think when you do that, it's almost better to have the focus. Yes, they'll be doing something and contributing in some way right away, but that's almost like a secondary thing, where the real important thing is just to get them set up with the platforms, right? And do something kind of in this evergreen quest. This is kind of the terminology I've seen in other groups. But it doesn't need to be a huge contribution. It's just something that gets them set up, right?
Yeah. There is a mental model that I use for pretty much every system that I design from a complexity perspective, is that you have your standard path, and that should be kind of optimized for efficiency and throughput, and you try to get most people through it. And then you always need a parallel system that is a high variety system, so essentially a way to deal with outliers. And most likely, a really basic setup of that can be for example, you have your trees, your sort of mind map that you showed, and you can have a thing underneath that is if the above is not working for you for whatever reason, come and speak with us. Right, that's just a super basic example, but you can, and then you have this other parallel system where you go and speak with a human who can actually process a huge variety of situations. And that tends to create way more robust system designs than either in isolation.
Well,
so you would suggest that you keep it broad. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Edu.
No, go ahead.
So you would suggest that you keep kind of with the ambiguity track and make sure that there's a clarifier that people who this is not working for, that we do have other pathways, and have those participant tracks as a secondary option.
Yeah, exactly. And you have the secondary option that absorbs, that is kind of like the catch all. And then let's say your ambiguity track, well, you need to figure out whether, let's say, what you call the ambiguity track, or a more streamlined version of here is 3 very simple things that you can do that apply to a bunch of stuff, makes more sense. You can then test that out. But you will always kind of need the parallel system regardless.
Can I land this into an action, Nate? If you feel like this is a good way to go. But for example, if we use a metaphor of the ambiguity, the orientation call is an ambiguity process, for example. But for example, if we incorporate into the orientation call a section, for example, that you lead 10 minutes, where everyone sort of, I don't know, pick an area of interest, or do a sort of an exercise to identify what they're looking for or what they want, then we do a follow-up to those people as a test and see how that goes. And we can put that list of people, these 2 people from the orientation call, put them on a participation track on an Excel, and we can start testing this with them. Do you think that is something we can do?
I do. I think that's really awesome. I think it'd be really cool. I think the key though is the guides. So if the participation tracks are going to work, we have to have guides that are willing to walk them, those individuals, through every step of how to get that first task done. And that means, answering their questions, explaining them the culture, explaining them how the working groups, maybe even accompany them to their first meeting. And just somebody to kind of hold their hand. Yeah. And so like, it's just kind of one of those things where you have this kind of buddy that once you're integrated into the TEC, you're free to do whatever you'd like. You can choose another participation track. You can join anything you want. But for those who are kind of getting lost at the beginning, I just want to have some type of path for them to really, get situated and comfortable with being a part of this system. Because a lot of people, they're just not used to being in a part of a decentralized community and how it works and what's expected of them. And, so they get kind of scared and move away. And I want to try to keep that retention high through a system like this.
And I think there's a key component here of awareness. Like it happens to us, I think, to a lot of working groups where you have someone popping in and saying like, "Hey, I want to contribute," and so on. But then the meeting is about something else, and they don't have time because bandwidth, or because the meeting is too long for getting to that person. So we can create also this sense of ambiguity but awareness, where if we are consciousness that there is a participation track plus guides, all the stewards can be conscious of this, and then if someone pops in like that, you just send them a link, or you just send them to orientation call, or you just send them to a track document, whatever it is, and then from that point on we can sort of take them by the hand. But we need to create this awareness because not everyone joins the orientation call. A lot of people just join a call, but they are still lost. So I feel that before even creating a participation track, for me there is a sort of a need of this awareness that where is the central point, even where it's centralized, but where is the central point of I have a question or I want to contribute, where do I go to? Because right now the central point of contact is a send hub for contributors, which is not very clear. And the second point of contact is the orientation call, which is, as we talked about before, is very ambiguous because of the 1 hour time that we have. So I think if we can identify these entry points, and for me, the orientation call is the main one at the moment, and also any other call of the working groups where you see people popping in. I think it could be really interesting, Nate, to sort of lay out this little process of awareness plus having a moment in orientation call to ask this question or pass the word fast and just recognize who has more interest or who has clear intention or clear knowledge, that we can guide them through a specific task or a specific thing to do. And we can do this best. I don't know. Yes, Gideon.
So, one thing that comes to mind is maybe what we do is, pick 1 or 2 working groups to start. And it feels like if we had a guide in a working group, right, who's basically kind of the equivalent of a guide, so we have the Communitas guides who serve the whole community and are guiding, welcoming people into the overall community. But what if each working group had an equivalent of somebody who's there to welcome, they're a guide for the working group. So there's like an easy handoff and we don't lose people as they move into the working groups, right? And they, it's like that person is there to kind of help them with the, getting set up with the easy stuff early on and maybe checking on them over time.
I really like that. And then so often people jump into a call and that's kind of their first contact. And then that person can reach out to them and then it's, funnel them to the orientation or whatever needs to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Gideon. Yes, Nate.
And how many guys do we have right now, Edu?
We have Jean, Mount Manu.
I want to say something.
Yes, I will finish.
Sorry.
I will finish answering and then I pass it to you. We have David, Jean, Mount Manu, and there is Nick and Aloysius who does a very similar task without necessarily having the label on. So let's say 3 people and 2 that are in the shadows. Yes, Nathan.
Well, I just want to add a comment on everything that you have said so far. I really like the idea of having a person that is the guide of guiding these newcomers through the working groups, because that's a current question that actually we received at the Commons Stack when new people is joining and want to participate in the TC Discord. But also there's another perspective of those that are missing in action and they want to get involved again with everything what's happening in the TC, and they actually don't know where to go, where to ask. So that's another point of view of seeing these participation tracks too. And no, so I just wanted to add also to take into consideration those basic touch points that people need to understand what is the TC and where they can participate. And doing everything like a visual. This I'm a person that really enjoy infographics, so I envision this as an infographic or a lot of infographics where I can find my path, and if not, I have the option to contact someone who can help me.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Yeah, I agree with you. Nate, were you gonna say something before I cut you off?
No. It's all good.
Okay.
Thank you for everybody's comment too.
So I think we have sort of agreed on an action, which is probably you and Gideon, Manu and Men's getting together to try to see how we can start these participation tracks or the process around it. And if you agree with that, then we can probably, not during the next orientation call, but the one afterwards, we can start trying to test it out if you feel like, Nate.
That sounds great. And Daniela, if you're interested as well, send me a DM and I'll try to set up a meeting sometime soon, possibly this week. There's a lot of coordination among the working groups that needs to be done as well beforehand. So, yeah, looking at the big picture of things would be very helpful. So,
cool. Thanks. Will do.
I will do one last round. I want to apply to the collective intelligence, and I will give everyone 1 minute, and I will pass the word on to just quickly explain how do you envision the roadmap for Communitas. If you can mention short-term, mid-term, and long-term action or goal that you think it's a good action or objective for the Communitas working group. And I will pass it on to Septimus to start us.
Thanks, Edu. Yeah, for me, Communitas is like the place where people go and then they have some kind of guides to find their way on the TC. Yeah, I'll pass it to Nate.
yeah, so short term infrastructure building, getting people in the right spots and growing the TEC membership. Midterm, I would say holding events, getting more partnership oriented, really helping around like areas of culture building as we grow. Because I think that's going to be challenged a little bit as we get more people in. So how to maintain that culture. And long term, I think individual profiles, the works, the HR works, and having everybody having their own profile and enjoying the interconnectedness of the TEC. And I'll pass it over to Manu.
Thanks, Nate. All right, so short term, keep onboarding people and learning about their needs. Medium term, I'd say answering those needs in content production, HubSpot tracks like what we've been talking about, and HubSpot email marketing. And long term, I'd like to craft detailed, sort of like psychological profile of the decision making of the people, if possible. Like there's like 4 types of people in terms of the psychology of the way they decide and lead and do self leadership. So I'd like to see if I can create something to understand them. That's long term because that's somewhat ambitious. and I'll pass it to Benz.
Thanks. Yeah, short term, working on ironing out, exactly which metrics we want to track, and kind of creating an inventory of like what metrics are even available, because that might shape what we want to track, or like proxies for the things we want to track. Medium term, using that to inform like the onboarding processes and things like that, and really building out, finalizing, maybe not finalizing, but solidifying some of those processes. And longer term, I'm looking forward to more of those like events and collaborative events with other communities and things like that. So I will pass to Gideon.
Thanks, Benz. I would say short term, maintain a strong focus on making sure that people feel warmly welcomed into the community. Like just really nailing that. And then medium term, I'd say Communitas playing more of a role of like an assistant or kind of advisor to work with the working groups to help them with the work of engaging all of these people. So Communitas kind of serves as the general welcome. There's a handoff to the working groups. So I could see us in the medium term working with those working groups to get better at that. And then longer term, I'd love to see us just like be like the very best DAO at helping people to develop professionally and personally, and then to match that to the mission of TEC. Like just get really good at doing that, and all of our working groups be really good at doing that. Okay, Daniela, did you go?
I haven't, but I need to jump right now. I have a call, so I'm gonna pass for this one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining, Daniela. No problem. And Janacy, you're the last one.
Okay. Well, short term, keep onboarding people. That's the main purpose of as I envision of a communities. Midterm, I will say that trying to keep an interconnection between the working groups, and long term could be keep working on in the main purpose of the TC.
All right. Thank you so much, Janacy, and thank you so much, everyone. We're at the top of the hour.